What's going on, guys? So we're doing the post-fight for UFC 226. We're starting off with the first two fights. Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Pettis and Paul Felder versus Mike Perry. So that first fight, Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Pettis. How do you have that one going? What do you feel about that?
Well, it wasn't what I expected. I predicted a dirty, grind-out win for Michael Chiesa, but Anthony Pettis looked pretty good. You know, he looked really slick.
It was a pretty grindy fight, but it kind of went down like our breakdown went. Like, I feel like everyone underestimates Anthony Pettis' jiu-jitsu. I feel like he has really slick ground game, and everyone takes it for granted. You know what I mean? And Michael Chiesa, I feel like he has a little overestimated ground game.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinks his ground game's super hard, but look, Kevin Lee choked him out rear naked.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Pettis puts him in a triangle, switches to an armbar, taps him.
Mm-hmm. I never really got the feeling that was a competitive fight either. You know, that Michael Chiesa showed glimpses of, he might be able to do something, but I always kind of felt like Anthony Pettis had control. I mean, it was a pretty short fight, but you know, Anthony Pettis looked like he outclassed Michael Chiesa.
Well, like we talked about, too, Anthony Pettis, you never know what you're going to get with the guy. Like, post-USADA, he was just destroying everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And now after USADA, you don't really know what he's going to come out and do. But when it comes down to the fundamentals and the techniques, he has it all.
Mm-hmm.
He's a well-rounded MMA, mixed martial artist.
Well, it's funny the way that Anthony Pettis won via submission, because he stated in the Embedded series that he was always afraid to exchange because he was afraid of the takedown and he couldn't defend himself. So he really worked on his ground game and his jiu-jitsu, and that showed. So you know, he's a level fighter. He can fight standing up and he can fight on the ground, and it showed tonight. Michael Chiesa is a killer. You know, he's a tough guy, and Anthony Pettis, this might project him back in the title contention. You know, so.
Am I wrong what I say about Michael Chiesa when I'm, like, undermining his jiu-jitsu? Because I have some personal beef with Michael Chiesa. I don't know what it is. I really don't like the guy. I feel like he whines so much. He's always calling out for a title shot when he's taking L's to dollies, you know?
I just think that he's a wrestler, you know, and I think that he's a grind-out kind of guy, but I don't think that he has the mechanics and the tools of a high-level fighter. I think he's going to be a middle-of-the-pack fighter. And like I said, I think
that's all he'll ever be, I feel
think
like.
that showed tonight. I think Anthony Pettis outclassed him. So
yeah. All right, on to the Paul Felder versus Mike Perry fight. What'd you think about that one?
Well, I said in the breakdown, I think someone's going to die. And a headbutt in the first second of the fight split Paul Felder's head open. He was gushing blood everywhere.
Yep.
There was a lot of analysts that said somebody might die, so I didn't think I was too far off. But, you know, Paul Felder is tough. He's Irish. He broke his hand. You know, as far as we know, I heard a lot of the commentators saying they think he broke his hand.
He wasn't throwing it. He seemed a little hesitant with that right hand for sure.
He wasn't throwing the right hand at all. His face was all bloody. He couldn't see. So, you know, you have to give him credit, because even though it went to a split decision and he ultimately lost, just hanging in there, you know, is a credit to him.
One thing we said is Paul Felder's game, and if anybody wants to play Mike Perry's game, Mike Perry's good at that, in the pocket, to sock him, you know, on the streets type of fighting. He's a fighter. He's not really a mixed martial artist. He's not sharp anywhere. He's good at fighting in the pocket. And Paul Felder made a big mistake by not trying to stay back and pick him apart. He fought with them in the pocket, and he paid for it dearly.
Well, you have to think, too, how early did he break his hand? You know, if he broke his hand early in the fight, he's not wanting to throw that hand. So that
he was throwing it, but
he had to change his whole game plan, because now I got a broken hand. I don't really want to throw it unless I have to. And he did throw it, but it was almost like when he thought he might be able to get that knockout or might be able to land a big punch.
And people don't think about that. That's one of the risks of throwing spinning back fists, because you don't have no protection right there. And when you're slamming that back fist into someone's head, you could easily break your hand, and it's happened before.
It has. It's happened before, and you can clearly tell when a fighter breaks their hand. They don't ever want to throw it. They start kicking them. They try to keep the fighter at range with their legs. You know, they throw a lot of jabs with his left hand. So
and they have about 5 to 10 minutes of numbness before that pain starts kicking in.
Absolutely. So, you know, you have to give Paul Felder credit. He took the L, but, you know, at the same time, maybe they'll run it back. He broke his hand, you know. Mike Perry going from here, it was a good win for him. We could clearly see that he got tired, which I think we spoke about. His cardio will give out at times. But I think he's such an aggressive fighter, and he pushes forward. That's why he gasses out.
I agree. And Mike Perry, like you said, Mike Perry does gas out later in the fight. Most of his knockouts are early in the fight, but if they go longer, he starts to slow down. Paul Felder, even with the broken hand towards the end of that fight, started landing and connecting and, started winning that fight. That's why one judge even had it a split decision. So anyway, stay tuned. We're going to do the second half of the fight, the heavyweights. Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis and Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier. Stay tuned, guys. Peace.